Going to a big pro wrestling event in person is a simple rite of passage as a wrestling fan. It's really mandatory to do it somehow, some way, someplace, sometime. If you're lucky enough to find yourself at a television taping for any of the major companies, here are 5 things that you need to know before you go. Number 1, and I'll say this one first and foremost, they absolutely hate laser pointers and recording video of any kind. It seems silly to me that here in the year 2024, we're talking about things such as laser pointers or laser pins, but here we are. Yes, this is still something that they write on the tickets themselves if you get individual tickets or when they did that sort of thing. There's also all kinds of signage about this sort of thing everywhere you look in the arena once you show up. WWE is especially aware of this and they're not letting it go. Taking video, well, far be it for you to even do that. It seems very weird to me that they outlaw this. They use some of this footage sometimes in documentaries and stuff like that. If you're to put it up on YouTube, there's a good chance that it could get taken down. They are that serious about it. AEW is a lot more lax when it comes to this sort of thing. At the AEW show I was at just last year, I recorded a lot of video, no problem. I saw people all around me recording video and I didn't see anybody warned or anything like that. But one of the more recent WWE Raws that I went to, I got absolutely swarmed on by security for filming 20 seconds of an entrance. Meanwhile, the guy 3 rows in front of me literally sat there and taped the whole show on his phone. So whether or not security is going to enforce the rules is kind of a coin flip. Just kind of depends on who you are, but just something good to know. Number 2 or number 4, if we're going backwards or forward, I don't know. The next thing I want to talk about is something that you should probably be aware of before you even go, and that is knowing where the hard camera is in the arena. This is something that you should be figuring out while you're actually buying your tickets. Just know that when you're looking at a seat map, usually that's set up for a WWE or AEW type event, you'll see how at one side of the arena it'll have the stage and the ramp and that sort of thing. Well, basically what you want to do is put yourself in the perspective of the wrestler coming down that ramp, and more than likely 99% of the time that hard camera is going to be to the right of that entrance ramp. So what that means is if you want any kind of a general shot of getting on camera, for the most part you're going to want to be facing that hard camera side, which means you would be opposite of that stage side to the left. And then there's however many ground cameras, like 3 or 4 ground cameras that they go back and forth between. That's something that's all done on production for television purposes. If you are watching one of those cameramen and you can actually see the red light on their camera, there is a good chance that you are in the shot on live television. The next point I'd like to make is to show up early. And no, I don't mean just like show up a little bit early right when the lines are forming outside. If you want your best chance at some kind of random encounter with a superstar or something like that, what you're going to want to do is be in the area literally hours before the doors open. You have to kind of guesstimate and think about what time the wrestlers are going to actually be arriving to the building themselves. I've seen it happen several times where there's a lot of arenas, depending on how they're set up and how the parking lots are set up and how their security is set up. And if it's very early, a lot of the arena security has not even been dispatched around the building. So if you know your area good and you have the time to hang out around those areas very, very early on in the day. There's a good chance that you could have a close encounter with a superstar, even if it's just them driving by you and flipping you off. This next one on my list, and these next 2 in general, kind of tie in together, and they're probably the most important, so listen very closely. Since it is television, there is going to be, you guessed it, television commercials tied into the whole thing. Sometimes it's not so noticeable noticeable depending on what's going on the show and what the arena and the company has planned to do in between these ad breaks. But if you're going to a WWE Raw, for example, they are very, very noticeable, as Raw is a 3-hour television show. So by the time you're going to the commercials in the third hour, you're like, all right, the jig is up already. There's only so many times we can see the kiss cam and all these arena gimmicks that happen every time that you go to a sporting event. This last Raw I went to just a couple months ago, for example, we sat through a commercial break. One wrestler made their entrance, and then we sat through another commercial break, and then the second wrestler finally made their entrance, and I'm sure they went to a commercial break pretty quickly into the match. So just know that if you're going to go to one of these live television shows, you're going to be waiting through ad breaks. And also, going hand in hand with that, the last thing on my list here is you can also be prepared to not actually see much wrestling. And this is especially true on the WWE side of things. Now, I could do a whole video about the pros and cons about how each company does TV. That's actually a good idea. I might actually do that here. But especially WWE, I'm looking at you in case of this. With all these commercial breaks and the way the style of the show is, the way how everything is put together, when you really sit back and think about it, it kind of makes the arena experience just a little bit subpar. At least that's how I felt leaving this last WWE Raw that I attended. I felt like it was a good show, and I was in no way disappointed about the show itself. But when really thinking about it, I probably saw about 30 minutes total of actual in-ring action after being there for about 4 hours. You're not going to get a whole lot of actual bell-to-bell wrestling at like a WWE TV taping. AEW, I think there's probably a little bit more, especially if you stick around at the end for the Ring of Honor stuff. That's it. That's all I've got. Hope you enjoyed that. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to you, the viewers. Are there any other important bits of information that you think the people out there need to know before attending their first WWE Raw or something like that? I'm also down to hear any kind of other stories that involve going to a Raw or any sort of TV taping. Thank you very much for watching. It'd be a lot cooler if you subscribed and also left a like on the way out. Until next time, we see you right here on Pro Wrestling Planet.